Welcome to Soulful Living. I'm Phillip Mountrose with my wonderful partner and wife, Jane Mountrose. We're your
Hi,
hosts.
everybody.
2021 new year for Soulful Living, another year to live soulfully. And this show provides timely keys, solutions for open minded people like yourself, creating more joyful, meaningful, and prosperous lives. And an overview of us that we've had decades, literally decades of experience in the field of holistic coaching and healing. We're published authors, trainers, coaches. We have many programs. We're founders of IAHP, the International Association of Holistic Practitioners, and head of Awakenings Institute, a nonprofit organization dedicated to making the world a more loving, nurturing place. And today, the subject, which is really going to carry us through a whole year, is how to create and how to get the most from life. Uh, Jane?
Yeah, it's interesting. We started this show right at the beginning of last year. We were just talking about it was like we were in another world,
Right.
almost literally, pre-pandemic. So it is very different. But at the beginning of the last year, when we started the show, our focus was on something that has been transformational for us, which is learning how to realize your dreams soulfully and with the greatest joy and ease. Our soulful approach, I think, based on that, which is heart centered, we'll be talking a little bit more about that. Um, we believe we're all here to live fully and grow. And we need to follow a certain path to make that happen. So for us, built, the idea of doing that is built on a soulful connection with the higher truth and wisdom that we have within ourselves, which really resides in the heart, with a connection with the divine and with a, a recognition that everybody's here for a reason with special gifts to share and a desire to make that happen. And we want to support that. So we want to continue that this year. And we're going to provide, again, kind of an overview of what in our minds is happening behind the scenes, what it is that we're wanting to accomplish. And also, we're going to revisit some of our favorite strategies from last year, which we'll probably go into in more depth again later in the year, too. And it our approach built on something that just about all of us are unaware of and we don't really understand fully. And it's why some people seem to flow easily through life while others struggle. And it's kind of like why some people seem to be lucky and for some others it's they struggle with things seemingly always working against them versus good things happening to them. And there actually is a reason why that happens. And there are a lot of nuances in different areas that we can explore that are going to build to create the best life. So the actually we've had a lot of training over the years. We've been in the field for approximately 30 years as holistic life coaches and healers, known primarily actually for our healing abilities. Um, but we have had other training that we've used for ourselves and also that we teach in our programs. But there's one thing that we don't specifically go into that we go into in this show, um, which is one time, and this was years ago now. It's interesting the years keep going by. We took a very intensive program. We probably were there for a year or two, um, where it was about really manifesting your dreams. And in that program, we actually had to take exams. And in one of the exams, we had to memorize. It probably was more than 100 statements that actually reflect on your ability to realize your dreams. So it's things like, um, and these are now what we're actually talking about now are the are our interpretations and our focuses, things that might not necessarily have come directly from there. But I think one thing, which I also think is a favorite of mine, is I choose to live in the flow with joy and ease, or I can let go of things I cannot change and things like that. So these are the kinds of topics we're talking about. And a lot of them are also instructional, like develop a clear sense of where you want to go and get excited about it, or express gratitude for the many blessings of your life throughout the day. So we'll talk about topics like that, and generally each week on the show we just choose one topic and we go into it, like it might be gratitude, and we'll go into it ourselves or often with a guest too. And we have spontaneous conversations with practical tips about how you can make that happen and why it's important. So, behind this strategy, there's something that people don't understand, which has to do with how you develop competence really within your mind and make things easy for yourself, which I think Philip would like to describe.
Right. So this could come under the heading of the key for changing your mind. And it comes from something you may have heard of called the four stages of competence. And it came from the 1970s, Noel Birch, who was a corporate trainer. And how do you get from what we're saying to being it? Sometimes called being the words. So
Right.
these strategies, like some of we're going to share today and every week, how do you make them your own? If you'd like to, and they're well worth becoming more joyous, more soulful, more connected, more purposeful, and more hot,
Luckier,
luckier,
more blessed, more, however you
more
want to say
flow
it.
and ease, as Jane was
Right.
saying. So
Yeah,
how do
make
you
things
do it?
easy.
So it's an interesting idea, which most people would acknowledge and say that sounds good. How do you actually express that, become that integrated at a much deeper level, which is what this show is about. So the four stages of competence. It starts with conscious incompetence, a kind of hoping, where if you want your life to, for example, flow with joy and ease, that's sort of, oh, that sounds like a good idea, but I'm really stressed. There's so many things happening now. I'm facing this with my family, with my work, with the environment, with the government, etc. So how do I make it flowing and easy? It doesn't seem flowing and easy. I'd like it to be. So that's kind of the incompetent stage, where it sounds like a good idea, but you don't really have any idea on how to integrating it into your life. So stage two is becoming consciously incompetent. That means hey, I would, instead of just living miserably, fighting, resistant to all that's happening, now you say, I'm going to go and flow and ease. I don't know how to have it happen, but I can start to kind of stumble around and explore it a little bit. And listening to a show like this will definitely help you. Soulful Living here with Phillip and Jane Mountrose. That's the conscious incompetence, where it's like if you're learning a physical skill, where it's really awkward when you're learning physically first how to drive or maybe play a
Right.
sport. And then after you do it a while, if you keep doing it, it becomes conscious competence. In other words, life normally flows with joy and ease. That's more the norm than the exception, because you've practiced it. You've done a lot of different skills. You've taken the time and energy to make it your own. And that's conscious competence, the third stage of competence. And fourth, and it just becomes unconsciously competent. It becomes, flow and ease. That's just your norm. You don't even think about it. You're just being, flowing, and of ease, or whatever it is you're focusing on.
Yeah. So
Jane?
actually, it goes from being kind of clueless through these stages of development and to the point where what you want to create, the way you want to create it, becomes automatic for you. In other words, if you focus, like if every day you focus on telling yourself and you believe it, belief is really important with it too, that my life flows with joy and ease. If I'm going through my day and telling myself that repeatedly, day after day after day, that becomes my norm, right? That my life flows with joy and ease. And I can say that very easily because that's my desire. So that is how I've programmed myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, everything can change with that. I mean, it might sound in a way, I think, kind of silly to be memorizing statements like this, but there are certain ones that are like magic keys to actually taking that soulful perspective and bringing soul fully into form on earth, because we have to do it through this body that we're in and through this brain that we have. And if the brain is programmed to tell us, well, things never work out for me, or I'm not good enough, or whatever those things are, you're going to keep creating things that resonate with that. So we have, for ourselves, we actually went through, we graduated from the course that we were taking, and I'm very grateful actually that I have all of those statements instilled in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
There are things like, when you find yourself hurrying and worrying, stop the momentum and notice something pleasing around you. It's like, if you notice you're not in the right state, decide that you're going to shift, because you have that opportunity. And a good way is to, to bring yourself in the moment. A good way to start is to focus on something where you are. I think, also Philip and I, what we wanted to do today too is share some of our favorite our favorite ones, the ones I think that we have found very helpful for ourselves. Some highlights from last year and things that probably will go into more this year too. And with guests, we often will have the two of us. Sometimes we'll have one of us with a guest. Sometimes we'll have two of us with a guest. And whatever it is, the show is generally spontaneous. We have the topic, whatever, like it might be, open your heart and focus on love, which to me, that is like the bottom line, is to connect with the truth in your heart. It is like, follow your heart. It sounds really obvious, but just open your heart and focus on love, which is connectedness. Connectedness with the divine. And that can be a whole show where we talk with a guest or among ourselves, and uh, focus on specific topics also. So it's really fun, and it is something also that then you can play with it in your life. And it is when you can play with reality and start feeling like it's not as fixed as you thought it was. That's a good sign, because it's not. Things can change.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, let me review a couple of those things because there may have been some cutouts there with the internet's instability. So it's a conversational show based on living from your soul, practical tips, strategies that you can actually apply and learn and integrate at a deeper level than just quote listening to it. Like I heard, and memorizing it may be part of it, as we said, as we studied in this program, and then memorizing it like something that's a very important test. The test is your life of living soulfully, shall we say. And we have these conversations with Jane and myself, and sometimes with guests every week on this live Facebook show to explore these actionable tips about how to live soulfully.
Right. Right. Yeah, and it is actually, memorizing is part of it. As I mentioned, belief is part of it. If you don't believe that you can feel good, and another one of my favorites is make feeling good your primary focus and enjoy each day. If you don't believe you can feel good, if you don't believe that you're capable of feeling good and enjoying each day, then you're not, because that's your belief. If you believe that that's possible, then there are strategies actually for doing that that can enhance your ability, along with memorizing the statement that that's something that you want.
So that's a good starting point if you're interested in feeling good every day. So you might be thinking, well, there's a lot of problems, feeling good, isn't that putting your head in the sand? That doesn't sound possible. Well, a good starting point is to make that a goal and a name, to find little ways could just be looking outside, taking a nice deep breath, looking at something in your environment that you find pleasant. It could be very small. It often is. And putting yourself more in that than worries, hurries, problems, which are to be dealt with too. And we talk about a lot of ways to address those as well. But uh, how to live more fully, more soulfully, getting the most out of your life, which is the theme of this Soulful Living show, getting the most from your life.
Right. And it is, if you look at the part of I think the foundation behind it too, is that you're going to draw things to you, as suggested already, that you're going to draw things to you that resonate, kind of vibrate at the same level. So if you're feeling good, you're going to draw to you more things that make you feel good. If you feel miserable, like my life is, blank, it it's going to draw more things to you that will validate that, because that's your reality. And the more we can find these strategies, which we can, that are going to support us in living fully and easily, the better things are. Another from my list of favorites, I have this kind of trio of things that can really help me at least to feel good during the day. One is, don't get caught up in the small stuff. It's so easy to let something minor frustrate you for the whole day, whereas you can just say, well, I'm going to let that go because I'd rather enjoy my life. Um, that one, and let go of the things you cannot change, which is actually a big one. There's a lot, and with the pandemic, there's a lot in the world that we can't change. And it is challenging to let those things go, but the most to be creative, and we see ourselves as creators, we need to be able to be in a in a kind of an open state. So we have to let go of all the things that are complicating our lives, which also, that's the third thing on this trio, is lighten your load. You have to lighten yourself and let go of some of those things that are actually distracting you from being that person who you want to be, who you came here to be.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on that, Philip?
Well, no, I just had I wanted to review the shows. The sort of this year we had sort of themes, roughly speaking, overlapping to give people a sense of the show and what we cover again from a different point of view.
Okay.
So the three themes from last year, broadly speaking, is one would be compassion. There were several shows about caring for yourself, um, the power of appreciation, um, unconditionally loving yourself. So those would be tips, and that would be an interesting goal. How can you unconditionally love yourself? When you start to beat yourself up, how can you be compassionate like you would to maybe someone else or a young child? And that's a big theme for being soulful, and that is a key to wisdom. One of the most fundamental keys to being wise is to being compassionate, and it's part of mindfulness too, and soulfulness. Another theme which we covered in several shows with ourselves and with the guests that we have on regularly was manifesting your dreams. We actually have a course coming up February 9th at this point at our holistic coaching and healing program uh, on manifesting your dreams. It's an online certification. You can find more about that at tinyurl.com/HOL coach, tinyurl.com/HOL coach. So manifesting has been a big part of our purpose, what we teach, what we want to live. And I'm sure all of you want to manifest things that are important to you, more than little things, but little and big things. Manifesting health, manifesting wealth, manifesting relationships, manifesting more purpose in your life. And we've talked about that in different ways. Some of the shows were called Opening to Miracles or Activating Your Creative Spirit. And the third theme, besides compassion and manifestation, was especially in the latter part of 2020 was thriving because of all the challenges with pandemic and such at that time and this time. Um, how to thrive, how to be thrive in an uncertain world. Uncertainty is part of actually becoming soulful, because most of life is uncertain, even though we want to be certain. Part of it, we can never be certain, and once you embrace that, you become more soulfully aware, alive, and opening to more possibilities. And also how to handle crises. What do you do? How do you be in the present, which is another theme, being present to your life when challenges are coming at you and you seem overwhelmed? How can you ground yourself? How can you breathe? And we talk then, discuss about those kind of things regularly. So those are three themes: compassion, manifesting, and thriving, that we covered last year, uh, in particular.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah, yeah, we've covered a lot of territory, and we're going to, I'm sure, as I mentioned, we're probably going to return to some of the things that we
Oh yeah.
talked about last year and add also our new insights based on where we are. One of the things that I really enjoyed when you're talking about um, difficult times is the strategy that I have for times when something like surprisingly bad happens. Like you know, it's like it just kind of comes out of thin air, and you're there like and you don't know what you're going to do, is to say, this is going to come out much better than I ever could have imagined. I'm going to be surprised and delighted with the results. And then the other part of that strategy is to watch for that surprisingly good thing to happen. When
Right.
you, and actually something good is happening is another great one. A great one to start any day is something good is happening and I'm going to find out what it is. So when something surprisingly bad happens, um, and if you can kind of end up with that kind of validation that something good is actually happening and I'm going to find out what it is, you may surprise yourself. The
Hmm.
times when I've told myself that it has actually worked out that way. And then you're actually in a state, in a state of kind of wonder, like, oh, how interesting, this is interesting. It looks so bad. I wonder how this is going to happen. And you won't know. You don't, I mean, there isn't any imaginable way that that could occur. So you have to kind of go with it just as a kind of I don't know how you describe it, just as a potential miracle, I suppose. And then watch for it.
Right. You want to find the miraculous, the good things, even amidst the quote bad things. Try to figure out what can be learned, because you're always can learn and grow regardless of the situation. And that's probably why we're all here. We're all here to learn and grow. Every human, to some extent, is here to learn and grow, and they have a choice on how and whether they want to do that.
Right, right. And I just as an example, a few years ago now, I developed a heart condition and I had no idea what was happening, and I was really confused, and um, it reached a point where it felt like I had to go to the emergency room. It got so bad, and it was changing pretty rapidly and dramatically.
Heart rhythm.
And so as Philip was taking me out of the house, I remember, and we were getting into the car, I was telling myself, well, this is going to come out much better than I imagined. I'm going to be surprised and delighted with the results. And it did work that way. And the whole time I was in the hospital and going through all of the processing and everything, I just was in this place like, okay, so now here I am at the hospital, and kind of being present to what was happening in the moment without actually having any concerns about it being good or bad, which is another thing that just to avoid over evaluating things, because we evaluate things as being bad so often when it might be one of the best things that ever happened.
Right.
But as it turned out, actually, with that one, it was just that I act, and this is a caution in terms of supplements. I was taking too much magnesium, and for some reason, my system, I can't tolerate a lot of magnesium, and it can create a heart problem. So what they had to do was to detox my system of the magnesium, and then I went home and got better pretty quickly.
Yeah, and ironically, 80% of people have shown to be deficient in magnesium. So it's you never know where these things can sometimes come.
Right, right. And you could say, and I didn't know. I mean, when you have something like that happening, you think, well, I don't know if I'm going to live or die.
Hmm.
But if you can avoid getting wrapped up in what's actually going to be the outcome other than what you're intending, you can put yourself into a space of being more present in the moment and just taking it step by step and observing it, which I think also is to us one of the ultimate goals is to be in the simplicity of the moment as much as we can, because
Hmm.
that's really our point of power. If you want to create the life of your dreams, for one thing, you have to be present to possibilities when they emerge, because they could, if you're not paying attention, they could just pass you by and you never notice it even.
Right.
It's kind of crazy to think about it, but it does happen. So there've been other things also. We used to own some rental properties, and one time one of them caught on fire, and it wasn't anywhere near us, but we just told ourselves, actually we that time we decided that we would get out some champagne, so we had a toast. It wasn't We didn't get out the champagne to intoxicate ourselves. We were celebrating the fact that it was going to come out better than we ever could imagine possible, and we would be surprised and delighted with the results. And it actually did come out relatively smoothly, and it didn't burn down the whole thing. So it was
Right.
good. It came out well.
Right.
And that's kind of a funny thing when you that idea of making lemonade out of lemons, that if you focus on that when things aren't looking good rather than saying, "Oh no, it's happening again. Nothing ever works out for me," and watch for the terrible result, then you're going to get that.
Right. Yeah. If you just sort of start with the premise that I'm here to learn and grow, then virtually everything that's coming to you is an opportunity to learn and grow and to live more soulfully. That's why my understanding is your soul took you here to learn and grow and to become more, figure out some things, um, and go further. It's instead of reacting and getting so close and so blind. What's the word? Tunnel vision. So
Right.
close to everything, so reactive. Uh,
Mhm. Right. Good, bad, this is good, this is bad, this
yeah.
this shouldn't have happened or whatever it is. Whatever happened, happened.
Hmm.
And it's the next thing is just to keep going.
Right.
Yeah. And I think for us also, as people who know us understand, are the the basic foundation I mentioned, following your heart. It really is connecting with the truth and wisdom that lies in your heart, which also then through that you can access, higher beings and dimensions and source energy. And it is from that place also that we want to be in the moment, in a place of, really, it's a place of oneness. And when you connect with the truth in your heart and you receive guidance from it, it is a place of wisdom. So you can receive, it's your most resourceful place. You can receive guidance from that place. Whereas if you're kind of what we call wallowing in the mud, it's really hard to be your most resourceful. Like if you're fearful or angry or frustrated or confused, you want to, and we also, that's where healing has been such a big thing for us, and it still is. And we would say to clear, clear when if you have things that need to be cleared too. um, we do focus on that on this show sometimes, but more really on strategies.
Right. And just also note that or a couple times a month, we have a wonderful guest on to have a discussion on a soulful living theme. As I mentioned, they're generally strategies, affirmations, things you can put into your life immediately, live. on how to live more soulfully, not just as a theoretical, interesting, abstract idea. And we have a lot of wonderful guests, coaches, healers, authors, people from different walks of life that we know or have encountered or we've invited onto the show.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's not just our perspective, it actually is partly their perspectives too, which enhances it further. And as I mentioned before too, the conversations are generally spontaneous. We don't, it's not like a scripted 5
Mm-hmm.
points for doing this, and we just read them off. It actually is, it's a talk like we're having, like Philip and I are having right now. We have a discussion about something and with a guest, which is really wonderful and life enhancing.
Mm-hmm. So anything else for today, Jane?
Um, well, another one of my favorites, I think, is take one step at a time and let go of how you'll reach that ultimate dream, because you probably won't know how.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we'll be going into some of these again in more detail this time. But that's a big one that often people won't start going in the direction of their dreams because they don't know how am I ever going to make that happen? And you can't know, but you can decide on your next step.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the most effective strategy, which then can help to satisfy confusion. And
Mm-hmm.
confusion can stop people too. Confusion often will set people back. Like confusion, the positive thing about confusion is that it's telling you that you're going into unknown territory. That's why you're confused. You haven't been there before. You don't know exactly how to navigate through it. Um, the the difficulty then is, well, if I don't have any idea of of this, then now what? And it really is like having a strategy of taking things one step of it at a time and determining what your next step is. Like I'm entering the woods, I need to have a flashlight, or whatever it is. I
Mm-hmm.
want to, in our case, for a lot of the people we work with, I want to be a holistic practitioner, and maybe the first step is training, which reminds me, actually looking, I see that John Fiore's here, one of our
Hey,
graduates
hi,
and really
John.
wonderful
Welcome.
person. So yes, hi John, and happy New Year to you
And
and
John has been a
everybody.
guest on the show.
Yeah, and will be, I'm sure, again. So those kinds of tips, when you also, if you watch the show every week and you just start building one on another,
Right.
then it really can change your life in dramatic ways. I would suggest focus on feeling good and intend to live with joy and ease. I think that's, to me, the best way to start after you connect with the truth in your heart, of course. And
Mm-hmm.
we have processes for that and everything too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and today was a good overview of the show, where we've been, where we're going, some broad themes, broad strokes. And as we've been mentioning, weekly we go more drilling down into one specific strategy, like just take your next step, like Jane was saying, and really spending a half hour, an hour on that one strategy with Jane and myself or a guest. Um, Today was a good overview for people too, and a reference for the show, the Soulful
Hmm.
Living show here with Phillip and Jane Mountrose.
Right. Right. And we don't, every week, we don't have time to give this kind of an overview, which is why we wanted to do it now. And just, I think it's really helpful to reflect on those 4 stages of competence,
Mm-hmm.
because that really makes a lot of sense when you think of it. You start, you're the first stage, you're kind of clueless. You think, well, gee, it'd be nice to be able to realize my dreams and do something meaningful with my life. And
Mm-hmm.
you think, and of course then it's kind of like that, how you don't you don't know how it's going to happen. So you're confused. But then in the next step, conscious competence, that's where you take command. You choose that you're going to take the first step and find out how that's going to happen, to become competent at it. And then as you work through that, um, actually conscious, I'm sorry, I skipped one. Conscious, the second one is conscious incompetence. Then you know that you don't know. And that leads to conscious competence, where you take command, you start finding out how you can take the steps that you need to take. And then as you continue, that becomes automatic. So if your intention is to live with joy and ease, and you take that through those steps rather than living with stress, in fact, that it is a really wonderful kind of a solution for stress, then as that becomes your natural way of being, living with joy and ease, you eventually reach competence, which means that it's happening on automatic. That becomes your automatic. And that's the goal with all of this,
Hmm.
is to make the things that make life easy for you, joyful, easy, prosperous, you know, uh, purposeful, that you have those working for you on automatic, and then your life really does flow.
Right. So some of these tips, these strategies you may have heard of before, and we want to drill down and get a little more closer, more granular, and some may be quite new to you. But
Hmm.
regardless, you can apply them through the 4 steps to go from unconscious incompetence, like I didn't even know that existed, to actually, wow, my life now generally
It's
does
happening.
flow with joy and ease. That's just sort of my default go-to now, instead of confusion and fear and stress.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Which reminds me of another one. Hurry and worry is such a big thing. It's like when you find yourself hurrying and worrying, stop it.
Hmm.
Because you have to be able to tell yourself that, well, if that's happening, that's not going to help me. It's going to take
Yeah,
me away from what I want.
calm and breathe and go back into the moment.
Right. Yeah.
Be calmer and breather. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So anything else, Jane?
Um that seems like, I think, a good overview. The thing that actually it made me think of is sharing the page, and I guess I should have thought of it earlier, on our website, where they can find out how to do the soul centering, that's the process for connecting. Do we have
Yeah,
a
yeah. I
a
have
tiny URL or
I
something for
do
that?
for soul centering. Ooh, I don't have that. Thought I had that. Well, anyways, you can go to our website and learn a lot.
Maybe, why don't we could, maybe for people on Facebook, we could add it into the
Yeah,
comments if they
I
can
can put
find
that
it.
there. Yeah, yeah, I'll do that. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so anyhow, we're looking forward to another wonderful year
Right.
of soulful living, and hope you'll join us.
We do. And we're Phillip and Jane Mountrose. This was another episode of Soulful Living, kicking off the year. Wonderful year coming up. We hope you enjoyed it. And how to make the most of your life was our show this week. Our website, getting thru.org/holistic, getting thru.org/holistic. Tuition for our courses and programs. There's also a lot of free offerings at that website. Help our mission at Awakenings Institute, the nonprofit organization. Hey, share this show with others if you like it. Have a wonderful week. This is Philip and Jane Mountrose. Until next time.
Bye, everybody.